And welcome to the Comic Corner. My name is Damon. He is AF. Buddy, how are you?
I am great, dude. I'm loving these morning sessions for me. Actually, the morning sessions for you, the afternoon sessions for me. I don't have to be up at 11 South African time
Mhm.
to record. So, I mean, this is great. This is great. But at what expense, Damon? At what
Mm.
expense?
I'm used to waking up early. So this isn't terrible for me. I'm a European soccer fan. I'm used to waking up at the crack of dawn to watch some grown men and women kick a ball around. It's fine, you know. And now I get to wake up at the crack of dawn to talk to you about comic books, and that's what we're here to do
Yeah.
today.
And I'm super excited about that. Just going back to you waking up at the crack of dawn,
Hmm.
you didn't wake up for the elimination chamber. That was what, 2 a.m. your
Oh, that
time?
was 5 a.m. So that was
Oh,
a
5
little too early.
a.m.
That was a little too early for myself. On to the rundown today. Nightwing is coming to a close. A run that is up there with one of my all-time favorite runs. Like I don't even want to say finally. We'll talk about that. But they had a new issue last week. I was on Comic Book Nation, so if you saw that, thank you, and you then know my thoughts on it. But if you haven't watched that, you get to hear my thoughts now. How to Lose a Guy, Gardner. I picked this up. I haven't read this yet, but AF has read this, so he will tell me why I should immediately read this the second this podcast is over. Something everyone should read. Wonder Woman. Tom King's Wonder Woman, Daniel Sampere's Wonder Woman is phenomenal. Last issue, issue 6, shocking to no one, phenomenal. And Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver get their moment to shine. We'll chat about that too. But first, this is tough for me, man.
Wow.
I mean, yes, this artwork is phenomenal. Bruno Redondo still doing the cover art. He hasn't been doing the interiors. Conrad's been doing the interiors for this issue, and we'll chat about that a little bit. But it was announced last week that this run from Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo is coming to an end for Nightwing. And I am heartbroken because I love this book so stinking much. I mean, we're even doing our comic book reading club for the first volume of Nightwing. That's how much I love this book. And I am so sad it's coming to an end. And I'm a little worried. I'm starting to see now, getting into this issue, I'm starting to see the groundwork of how we're kind of ending all of this.
Okay.
Ever since issue 100 up until I'll say about issue 107, 108, they had issue 100 and it was like a big celebratory issue. And then it became essentially a mini Titans book for a hot minute. Then we had our Dick Grayson pirate booty arc. And now we're kind of back to the main thing here. The fact that we kind of essentially only have two more arcs left, including this one to wrap all this up, worries me slightly. However, I'm starting to see the pieces of that pirate arc being captured and like brought into that main story. Be like, okay, this arc that I thought was a little silly side arc actually had grander meaning behind it because in it, we found out that Dick Grayson is no longer able to leap. He's almost like too scared to jump again, which is very out of character. Something's wrong with him. And that's what this arc right here with him and Batman is about. They find a kid whose father was killed by Heartless, who's the guy who kind of goes around and steals people's hearts. And something weird about this one, though, is his father, they look at his body and they're like, oh, this is strange. Heartless is usually very precise. This is rigged. Is this a copycat? We don't know yet, but there's something very strange going on. But it does, of course, because when you have Dick Grayson and Batman and Bruce, like just kind of like in its story together, it gets very much into the child trauma of it all. They see this kid who just lost his father, and you get flashbacks upon flashbacks upon flashbacks. It becomes very touching there, and you see the thing that brought those two characters together. And I did mention it earlier, it is a little difficult when you don't have Bruno Redondo on the interiors. I think Conrad does a very good job mimicking Bruno Redondo's art, but nothing is ever like the original. So now that we are on the second to last arc, I always wish that Redondo was on the interiors for this entire thing, but this one specifically, it would have felt good to kind of like, all right, we're starting to wrap up. Let's kind of get back on, you know, to the main look here. So that is what it is. Overall, this issue is good. I need to see where this is going because we have a lot to wrap up. I have a feeling I know where this is kind of all going around, where it's like the whole point of Nightwing, the whole point of Dick Grayson is his heart. Like, he doesn't have superpowers. He does have money right now because at the very beginning of the first volume of this, he gets the inheritance of the Waynes. So it was like, all right, cool. He gets the inheritance of Alfred. That's who it is. He gets Alfred's inheritance after he died. So he gets money. But it's Dick Grayson. He's not super powered, right? He's not Superman. So I'm interested to see where this is going. I just hope it wraps up good because I've been saying that if this book wraps up perfectly, this has potential to be my all-time favorite comic run.
And that's such a huge statement for you to make, because we know everybody that knows you, like from the comic book side, and just knows Damon. You, like, you are a huge Matt Fraction Hawkeye guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, if this is that good, that says so much. And I haven't been reading the Nightwing stuff, and I mean, I'm ready for our comic book club to get into it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what you have to say, and just how this entire thing ends, and just me jumping in, leaping in, pun very much intended, to the end of the series. Yeah. How many issues is this final arc?
The final arc, we don't know how many issues is yet. We just know
Okay.
that starting after the last solicits, it was the announcement of the final arc, which is called The
Okay.
Fallen Grayson. So the
Okay.
one last point I want to talk about with this run, one of the many reasons why I love it is because of how hopeful, how positive, and just how joyful each issue has been. There hasn't really been an arc or an issue that leads me feeling down, feeling sad. I mean, this issue obviously is pretty sad. We see a kid lose his father, but it has positive, hopeful moments. That's what Nightwing is. He is the best of Batman, he's the best of Superman. He brings hope wherever he goes. He brings that aspect of Superman with him. And I'm really hoping that this final arc doesn't break it. Everything that we've led up to once it concludes. I want it to be when this ends, things are still good. We kind of like look back on the last few issues, especially of this, where it's like, why isn't Dick able to leap? Why isn't he able to jump? And by the end of it, he is able to because they find out whatever that problem is, they fix it, type of thing. I don't want this to be by the time this ends, we go back to where we were, and then it's just like, gosh darn it. I don't want that. I want this to have a happy ending. Like, that's honestly,
I
that's all I want. I don't want him and Babs to break up by the end. I don't want him to lose his dog by the end. Like, I just want this to be happy. That's all I want.
tied up in a nice, neat bow, happy ending, walk off into the sunset. And I think I've seen you sing Tom Taylor's praises on the daily about how good this writing has been. And I I don't think that you should doubt his ability to end the story off well. I think it's going to happen.
No, he is the injustice guy though. So
He is.
he can twist it. He can twist it, but I know a lot of people love Injustice, so I won't go there. A book that you just said you enjoyed, and you just want me to read it. So this is you selling me on it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So yeah, it's an 80-page giant, as you can see on the cover.
Mhm.
So it's a nice thick read, but the name of the book is DC's How to Lose a Guy Gardner in 10 Days, but that's not the entire story. So this is a compilation of short stories all packaged into one title. Um, and it came out around Valentine's Day. It's just all about love lessons and dealing with life around the time period of Valentine's Day, but from a point of view of a superhero or a supervillain. Um, the first story between Guy Gardner and Vicky Vale, the reporter from Gotham. I mean, it's so cool because we all know what type of guy Guy Gardner is. He's this really egotistic, self-centered dude, and I mean, Vicky Vale just brings him down to earth. She grounds him quite a bit. So there's a very human side we get to see of Guy Gardner. In that short story. There are other short stories. Red Tornado, he finds love with an AI. Amazing. I mean, you can't be taking these things, these stories seriously. It's really just a fun time. It's a time to switch your mind off and just take in everything that the writers are trying to tell you. Another cool story: Wonder Woman experiencing Valentine's Day. Super villains, normal robbers, street level villains. They all want to be Wonder Woman's Valentine, and she has to say no to them every year. And then one year, she finally says yes, and she
Oh.
comes up with a plan to try and get them all together in one space, and just say that you don't want me to be your Valentine. You just want somebody to fill that empty space in your heart. And then the thing ends up with her and a few girlfriends. So yeah, it's really cool life lessons. The final one though, the final story in this book is right up your alley.
Okay.
Enters around a date night of Nightwing and Babs. So
Okay, you got me.
oh, and that's a perfect way to end this book. I loved it. I loved everything about it. The art was great from start to finish. There were so many different comic creators involved with this book, and I think DC just hit it out of the park.
Does Haley the dog make an appearance?
No. Oh yes.
Ah. Oh,
In,
yay!
in one small panel, in on the last page, one small panel.
Yes. Yes. That's all I want. That is all I ask for. I love that little dog. Codename Bitewing. I mean, come on. That's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. All right, you sold me on it. That's all you had. That's all you had to say. You got me
I
on it.
should have just said I should have literally just had a 3 word review or a Damon 3 word review. Nightwing is there. Yeah, that's 3 words.
Nightwing and Babs.
Nightwing and Babs.
There
Yeah.
you go. That 3 word review. Gotta love them. You know what I also love? You know what I also love? If you heard me last week on Comic Book Nation's pull list, this run from Tom King and Daniel Sampere, Wonder Woman. This is issue number 6, the end of the first arc. This thing is remarkable. This is the culmination of the subdivision of the US government agency going after Wonder Woman because of the whole war on the Amazons. We've been covering this book since we started this show. And every single issue I have I ever been down on an issue yet?
I think it's literally been banger after banger after banger from Damon Gray.
Yeah, well, it's more from Tom King and Daniel Sampere. Like these two,
Yeah.
the
I just meant
story.
from your
Oh
point
yeah,
of
from
view.
me, yeah. So these two, oh my goodness, where do I begin on this book without because you're getting into this eventually, right? Or do you want me to go into full
Yeah.
spoilers? You're
Um
getting into
I'm
this. I won't.
I'm going to get trades eventually. Yeah.
Okay, I won't go fully into it, but oh man, where do I begin? We see one of the gripes I've seen on Twitter, which is not a real place. Twitter's not a real place, but it's, you see loud opinions on there. And one of the things when Wonder Woman gets brought up is her rogues gallery, right? It's very difficult to compare anyone's rogues. There's only 2 rogues galleries in all of superhero media that like stand above everyone else, right? It's Batman's and it's Spider-Man's. Like even Superman's is not at that level, right?
Yeah.
Wonder Woman specifically, for one of the big characters for DC, for the Trinity that DC has, a lot of people look at her rogues gallery and are like, oh, who does she have? Like literally, who does she have? Like anyone. Cheetah? Okay. Who else? This book, Tom King says, hey, I'll show you who else. And the list that they compile from the previous issue, where they're both sides are kind of like getting their teams together, you see her rogues gallery, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a squad. And we're leaving out some characters too, intentionally. So we can show that this is a squad. And I was like, all right, this is cool. And then you get into the action sequences. I mean, the art here is so good. You see Wonder Woman at her best, literally taking on monuments that are thrown at her and still standing. Fights that last an hour. And the writing from Tom King, I've said this previously, if you don't like long narrative monologues, this is this is a long read. There is not a panel in here that really doesn't have more than 4 sentences. Like it's poetry though, because
Yeah.
it's being told from the perspective of the sovereign, who is the big bad of all of this. And he's a very poetic guy. So he loves to just kind of like describe things in a very beautiful, intriguing way. And the way that this character and Tom King writing it is like describing this fight sequence is just stunning. And there's some full page splashes in here from the art that I just like, I want to put this on a wall. Like I want to put this above my couch. Like the art is
Yeah.
that amazing in this book. The look of Wonder Woman here seems definitive. It seems like this will go on for years. When you think about Wonder Woman as like art visually, this to me going forward, this is the new standard. This is it. From the storytelling perspective, it's great. Without going into any full spoilers, I love that there's one thing, and I'm a little intrigued because previous issue we were gathering some characters on both sides. One of the sides we saw all those characters, the other side we didn't. So now I'm kind of like, what happened to the other side here? Like, where were they? And if you're reading this book, you know what I'm talking about. So I assume we'll see that not next issue, because next issue we see a little drop in, be like, hey, issue 7 coming up. It's gonna be a diversion from this whole story. It'll be a one-off, just kind of like get everyone a little breather from this 6-issue long arc. And again, I think I've mentioned this too. I don't tend to like long arcs. 3 to 4 issues for me for an arc is plenty. 6 to 8 is a lot. I mean, 8 especially, but 6 issues is a lot. They did very well here, not making this feel like an arc. It just feels like a continuated story. So next issue will be nice to kind of see like a little one-off story going forward. But we'll be back in issue 8, picking up from the events here in issue 6. That is
Yeah.
great. There's also a backup in here that features Trinity, Wonder
Okay.
Woman's daughter, who's been she's been the subject of the story, or being told this story through the Sovereign through all 6 issues. We just don't see the Sovereign or Trinity, like Sovereign telling Trinity this. It's all just essentially a flashback. But it doesn't feel like that, which I think is very, very cool. So we get like little young Trinity with Damien and John Kent, like the new future Trinity,
Yeah.
kind of like going forward. Oh, it's so adorable, man. I'm
How
a
long is that?
sucker. That little
Just a
it's only
few
like
pages?
a few pages. Yeah, these little backups
Okay.
are only a few pages, and the whole thing is literally like Damien's trying to get a young Lizzie to go to bed. So he's like reading her a bedtime story, and he's like, haha, I did it. I'm the best ever. And then he sits on the couch, and then, like, Lizzie's just like back up there. Is like, I can't sleep. And he's like, ah. And all she wants to do is go to the moon. So eventually, like, they go to the moon, and it's adorable. The whole thing. I love these little backups because they're just like, we have a very serious, poetic, long, mature issue,
Yeah,
and then we have like a little fun thing at the end.
something light.
It gives you
Yeah,
a little get. It gives you a little giggle, and you're like,
yeah.
"Ah, this is great."
It just sounds because I mean I know how wordy, I think that's the best way to put it, a Tom King book can be.
Yes.
And that's, I'm not saying that in a bad way whatsoever. I mean, Tom King is like, he's an amazing wordsmith, and he's like, you can feel the emotion behind all the dialogue that he puts into his comic books. I'm always going to go back to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow,
Mhm.
which, I mean, we will say it over and over and over again. It's one of the greatest stories that you can read. Um, it's just so good, and it feels, at first it does feel take a bit long for you to get into it because of how wordy it is. But I mean, after that base is laid in the first few pages, it becomes so much more easier as you go along,
Mhm.
and it's just so amazing. And it's all down to Tom King's exceptional writing.
Yeah, no, it does come down to Tom King's exceptional writing. I will give it this because I have read the Supergirl book. It's easier to get into this book than that one. You
Okay.
understand the world more because it throws you right into it.
Yeah.
I would highly suggest for anyone who still hasn't read this, pick up this trade when it comes out, 100%. But also read the backup in Wonder Woman 800 right before it, because that sets this whole thing up with Trinity and her talking to the Sovereign. Because you would probably have no idea that that aspect is going on. They really don't even say who the narrator is in all of this. So very important to read that going into this. So I hope when the trade comes out that like 800 kind of like sliver is at the beginning of
Yeah.
it, just because it would make it easier for people to kind of go in and read. But so far, man, like I said, this run is so good. I am a little bummed that next issue we're doing a little something different. Because like I just love this story so far, but it'll be hopefully like a nice little fresher breath there. Be like, nice, hopeful
A palate
story
cleanser.
again. Yeah, good palate cleanser before we go into the deeper story behind all of this, because we know that characters that appeared in issue 5 will be coming back in issue 8.
Okay.
And a character that has showed up occasionally. There's one that we've seen a lot, but a character that showed up occasionally. This is an anniversary issue, AF. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, the 60-year anniversary between the two.
Yeah. So, full disclaimer over here. I haven't read the Scarlet Witch run with Steve Orlando. I think it started not last year. Was it the year
It did
before?
start
Was it
last
last
year.
year?
Nope,
Yeah.
started last year. And I
So
have read it. So if you have any questions, I'm your guy.
yeah. So it was. I actually picked this up intentionally because I wanted to go in completely blind.
Mhm.
Um, just with this entire storyline. And I mean, like, I knew Darcy was going to be in because she was a character that they wrote in for that story last year. But yeah, I feel like it was interesting, like going into this blind, because I mean, this whole thing starts in the wake of Magneto's death, and you get to see this dynamic between Wanda and Pietro. It feels the writing, it feels so personal between them. Like you get that personal emotion that they feel between a brother and a sister, and I mean, then you incorporate the relationship with Darcy as well, who's also quite a big part of the story. Um, there's so much breathing room that's being spread out over the pages, and I just like the development that went on as we got further into the story. I mean, it starts off with a box being delivered to them with a letter from Magneto, We don't know what it says. Wanda reads the letter, and she is so taken aback by it that she just burns it up, and she tells Pietro that he just can't. She never ever wants him to know what was written on that paper. And they have this long quarrel. It lasts for a few pages, and he just speeds off, runs wherever in the world he wants to run, because he's a speedster. But yeah, it's an interesting start to the story, or an interesting story that they are telling. What did you think of it? I know that you read it a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
Uh, how did you feel about this entire story between the two of them?
Well, I was going into this knowing that this was a slight continuation of the Scarlet Witch run from Steve Orlando. It's the same writer.
Yeah,
So I was going into it being like, all right, I know how that ended. Are we picking up any pieces? And the answer is like yes and no. If you read the first issue, at least, of that previous run, you'd have a good feeling of the vibe, right? Like Wanda is in a small town in New York, not New York City, but kind of like the river area, and she has a shop that's meant to help people. So that's where Darcy's kind of involved. And Pietro was there in the first issue. So this isn't the first time we've seen like Pietro in town or anything. I thought overall this was good. It's it's challenging because it's so much of Scarlet Witch books since freak House of M just really feels like, all right, we're making up. All right, we're making
yeah,
up. All right, we're making up. And that's why I liked a lot of the last series because it didn't feel like, all right, we're making up. It's okay, we made up. Now it's time to do good. This feels like, all right, and I do agree with this to an extent because it's like, all right, we still really haven't had the twins make up with Magneto,
yeah.
especially with when Scarlet Witch died died during I put that in quotes for the podcast listeners during the Hellfire Gala event, which by the way, if they do another Hellfire, like any Hellfire Gala, for anyone who don't know, like I'm not a big X-Men mutant reader, but one thing I can say, anytime there's a Hellfire Gala, something bad happens. Uh this, that one, Wanda died, came back, they had the whole
People be
trial of
dying.
Magneto. Yeah, they had the whole trial of Magneto, that whole thing. So this is kind of making up for it. What I have a feeling, I hate to make a prediction in issue 1 for a mini series. What I have a feeling is it was Magneto either admitting what he did was wrong or saying, no matter what, you are still my kids. I think that's something that she didn't want Pietro to see because Pietro is a bit of a hothead. That's not
Impulsive.
anything
He's impulsive.
extraordinarily impulsive. He's a hothead. He will run on his first emotion, and he's still really bitter towards everything that Magneto has done towards him. So that's why I have a feeling this is going. This may be like one final kind of like let's do good out of all this because we do know Magneto's coming back to life. So it will be kind of like a nice little family reunion, quote unquote, if you will. I doubt that they're going to be like, and you're a mutant. If that's is what was on that piece of paper is like, oh, by the way, you're all still mutant. I'd be like, God, like, okay. I mean, I know Pietro always was, but like the whole back and forth thing with Scarlet
Yeah,
Witch being, are you a witch? Are you mutant? Are you both? Are you not? Who knows? I don't know anymore. Um, the one
that's
last
how it
thing
ties back into the MCU, Damon.
I know,
The higher
I
ups
know
have
they have
made
to.
the order.
They have the mutants back. We can no longer say Age of Miracles. We can finally say Age of Mutants. We did it. There is one thing I do want to point out. Very quick little like, that's fun. They acknowledged Tommy very
Oh yeah,
briefly
yeah.
in this,
It's like
and I was
Uncle
like, oh yeah,
Pietro.
he's still alive. It's
Uncle
like, oh cool, he's
Pietro.
still alive. So because he just ran by him, he ran by Tommy
Yeah.
one day. It's like, oh yep, we still acknowledge the existence of this character. That's great. They did that in the last run with Scarlet Witch. Do you remember that Pietro has a daughter? with Crystal.
I do not.
Yeah,
I
this
don't
we're
think I've ever read
talking.
that.
Yeah,
Is
we're
that with the Inhuman
talking.
crystal?
Yeah, yeah. Pietro has a daughter with the Inhumans with Crystal. So she made a quick appearance, like in an issue, the last Scarlet Witch one. And I was like, wow, you want to talk about characters that it's like a lot of people forget straight up exist? That's one.
That's because
So
they're going to end up making the Inhumans all mutants now as well. It's just like, oh,
don't you dare.
you
Don't you
you thought that they
dare.
were mutants? Psych.
Don't you dare. But overall, this is good. I'm honestly more because I just really have no interest in Pietro. I have more interest in Wanda and her life and her story. Pietro, I never really connected with because of his impulsiveness, because of his hot headedness. I just found him more to be like, I'm angry. And he just goes on. I'm like, all right, there he goes again, just
Yeah.
making rash decisions. Once again, the whole House of M thing was him and Magneto's fault anyway. So he's kind of never really been like an amazing person. So I never really connected with him. Before we go, I do want to shout out a book. I have not read the third issue yet, but I do want to shout this out. Hack Slash by Zoe Thorgood has been great. I never really got into like the whole hack slash like universe, but I read the first two issues and it made me want to go subscribe and get this third one that just came out. It's that good. I love her art style and it is so good. So I can't wait to read that later. Maybe
Indie?
talk about that next episode.
Is that an indie?
You know, I wouldn't really call it indie.
Okay.
I wouldn't really
Okay. Cool.
say Image is indie.
Okay. True. It's like the third. I feel like Image is just like, okay, I'm on the podium. Cool.
Yeah, like I mean, it's Image is, if you want to like put that ranking, like they are the third. They have great books. Like to me, indie now
Yeah.
isn't like Boom Studios isn't even indie. Indie is
I
like an
feel
actual publisher publishing under their own title. Like a great
fault.
opportunity to plug here, our good friend Adam Barnhart, who is self-publishing his own universe. That is indie
Yeah.
books. That is indie comics, and you can check out that interview over here on the podcast page for Agents of Fandom and our YouTube page here on Agents of Fandom under the Comic Corner playlist. AF going forward next 2 weeks. Any books coming out? Because the first of the month always gives us good books.
Dude, Green Arrow, I think it released yesterday, but it will
Mm-hmm.
only arrive over in South Africa in about 2 to 3 weeks. But that cover has me so psyched. It has Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, standing, shaking hands, if I'm not mistaken, with Amanda Waller. Dude, I want to see how this story ends. I want to see how this arc ends, and I'm super duper psyched for it. Like, this is what we've been waiting for all this time, and it's finally here. I need to read this like immediately.
Next week, we have a new Ultimate book coming out. Ultimate X-Men from Peach Momoko. A lot of body horror going on there. Very excited for
Ooh,
that. I just realized we never really brought up Ultimate Spider-Man number 2. Talked about that on Comic Book Nation last week. And
yeah,
that book made me subscribe to a Spider-Man book for the first time in a long time. So go check that out. If I cannot wait for you to read that uh, if you get your hands on it, because that book sold out everywhere.
yeah.
That first issue. Second issue still selling out very good. Also, that Guy Gardner book at my comic shop sold out. All the A
Oh
covers.
wow.
Yeah, which is very
Yeah.
surprising because that
Same,
book is not a cheap book.
same over here in Cape Town as well. I went to my comic book store, and if I didn't tell them to reserve it, I wouldn't have gotten it because
Mhm.
it was gone. They had the
Crazy.
normal standard cover, that the Ariel Diaz cover as well, which is, I mean, amazing. 10 out of 10, guys.
Yes, I
But
got that.
yeah, I mean, it was just sold out. So I love it. Like, please, if you haven't read it, if it's available online for you, just give it a read. You won't be sorry. You won't regret it. It's such a good read. such a
So
fun
also
read.
Birds of Prey, we've been talking about that. We've been hyping that up. Can't wait for that next issue. And for me, a big one, Avengers Twilight also came out yesterday. Haven't gotten my chance to catch up on that, but by the next
That's
next pod we should be able to.
The Miss Marvel issue, right? Or she's
Yeah.
on the cover. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And a big one for me, I will definitely talk about this one next pod. Black Widow and Hawkeye #1. We got another 60-year anniversary issue. Big,
Nice.
big, big. Very excited for that. I have no idea if Kate's going to show up with Clint's in it, so I'm happy. And although I do not like the idea of Natasha having a symbiote, I'm living with it.
I
So
saw
I'm
that
looking
art.
forward to see what Stephanie Phillips is able to do with this because I really enjoy Stephanie Phillips writing.
Yeah, I saw that art of all of those characters having a symbiote, and I don't think I've ever read any of those stories before.
Mm.
Like, I'm not really. I don't know if you've ever picked it up before, but I'm not really much of a Venom fan in the comics.
It
But
depends on the run.
yeah, okay,
Like I really enjoy the King in Black, Donny Cates King in Black. And that's because that was like a big event. And that's when you get like the coolest part of Noel, where it's like, all right, he finally attacks and everyone has a symbiote, and then you get like venomized Captain America and venomized
yeah,
everyone. And that like venomized Daredevil. Oh, that one was cool. That one was really, really dope. So it depends on the run. It depends on the story. I think like it worked well in that sense when it was just like a big, big, big event.
okay.
All
Maybe I'll
right,
give this one. I'll give it a gander. I'll give it a
give it a
gander.
gander. All right, last thing. Where can people find you on the interwebs before we head out?
Right here at AFBarket 642. That is on everything. All of these social media handles you see on top: X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, everywhere. Same handle. And yeah, support your local comic book store.
You can find me on Twitter at Damon Tweets. You can find me on Threads at Damon.Graham. You can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me on whatever. So TikTok, Damon Talks Comics, any social media app. I am there. I've been very, very busy with Agents of Fandom with Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you don't know me, that is like one of my favorite franchises in the world. If I had to list them, it's probably second or third. It is up there on a list. Sometimes, like right now, it's priority for me. So I've been doing a lot of writing over at the Agents of Fandom website. You can check out my review. You can check out my insights in the past avatars. You can check out some of the biggest changes from the new Netflix show, from the original show. And if you ever want to hear me talk about the comics for them, I talk about that on my TikTok. There's a lot of Avatar: Last Airbender comics. They're very, very, very all ages, very family friendly. So don't go in expecting anything dark. But if you do want dark, I got dark Avatar content for you. That is the novels. Go read those novels. I love them with everything in the entire franchise. They're the best thing.
Dude,
They
you absolutely cooked after the show came out. It was like after article after each other every single time, and I mean, amazing. Like to push out that much content in such a small space of time. Kudos, kudos.
Thank you. I have more coming. We have more coming. We just had to take a little bit of a break.
Don't forget, Comic
Yes.
Book Club. Is that our next episode?
I believe so. We're getting there.
I feel like it is. Brandon,
Yes, sir.
Emma, if you're watching this, start reading.
Start reading. I know Brandon is, and he is loving it naturally.
Nice.
That will do it for this issue. This issue. I might as just well just say this issue of the Comic Corner. My name is Damon. He is AF. Go support your local comic shop. Go read some comics, and we'll see you next time.